Hello and welcome. I'm academic developer RackForms. In this video, we're going to take a different tact, and I'm going to build a job, and then you could just watch me as I build the structures that make up this task. And the reason why that's different is because usually when we create a video, it is a very specific use case. We're just showing one or two things. Try to be really focused, and it's also going to be a video that tries to appeal to many people as possible, developers and non-developers alike. In this video, it is strictly for developers, and its purpose is to just see how a professional developer works. The two big audiences for this then will be for aspiring developers. If you're learning PHP, MySQL, you will find use in this, in that you'll actually see how a professional goes about their work and how we glue these two components together and create applications. And if you're a RackForms user and you want to learn a little bit more about how I create my own applications, this will be a benefit as well. So let's get started. So the basic job that we're working on here, and by the way, I should real quick mention that parts of this job are done as well to save time. We're not going to be recreating everything from scratch. So there will be a few times when I just describe what I've done, but we'll have plenty of things that we have to create from scratch. So what are we creating? We have this registration form, and this is taken from one of my current users who kindly sent over some information about a system that they wanted to recreate using RackForms. And so the job starts with this right here. So it's a team registration form. And the idea is that you're a coach for a basketball team and you want to enter your team into various tournaments. So they fill out this form. Part of the form is creating user ID and password. And then we, after completing this form, log into a system which then presents us with a management interface for managing our team. And there's a few components to that we'll take a look at shortly. So really the big thing with this then is database, in that we are going to be taking a block of information, allowing people to log in, and then managing some components of that. This form right here, this team registration form, is now already complete. This is what I mean. We already got some stuff done in RackForms, and this is that right here. So we've got the form built out in RackForms, and that includes inserting into the database. Two real quick points on this. Hopefully I can remember both of them. The first point is design. So it's interesting when you're developing applications. If you're in a small enough team, you will do design and coding yourself. And one of the strategies I always try to maintain is when I have something like this where it's a larger form, and in this case I have bucket items in RackForms that I'm using to group everything together, I try not to get too hung up about design. And maybe you're not a person that gets hung up about this anyway, but I certainly am. I'm a perfectionist not only with code but also with the way things look. And I always try to maintain a somewhat of a distance during the first pass, right? So this form right here looks fairly good, though I could certainly get in and use my ability to pixel precise position all these items, but I'm not going to, right? I'm going to leave this, even though it kills me inside to leave it like this. It looks good enough, right? When we build this form, we run it, it looks fine. And these are things that I can clear up later on. So get things looking good. Don't ever present junky looking work to a client or even to yourself, but make sure that you're not spending that much time killing yourself with the specifics. The other big thing that I wanted to mention was consistency. So as a developer, it is our job to be consistent. And the way I like to describe it is our forms, our jobs, our code should have almost an extrasensory perception. And that when we come back to a job after, let's say, a day or even 10 years, the job should speak to us. It should almost describe itself. And that may sound a little bit nebulous, but one of the ways that we can do that is just by being consistent. So all this information, all these fields are going to get sent to a database at some point. So in this particular case, I've made the decision to just put all this information in one table. And that includes the user ID and login information. And so I'm going to want to make sure that when I'm building this form out, that all of these fields, these form fields here, have consistent naming. Right? So this is actually really simple. This is not difficult what I'm describing here. But it's one of those things where if I look at any of these fields right here, the important field that we care about in RackForms and in the database is what the name value is. Because when I use in RackForms the SQL Plus Automator right here, it's going to create a database table for us, and the name of the column of that field is going to be what we've called the field right here. So team name, team group, team uniform color, right? All of them have the team underscore prefix. Again, very simple in concept, but by extrasensory, I mean that, hey, I can actually look at this team contact block right here, and just by guessing, I'm going to know that it's probably going to be contact as the prefix. And sure enough, it is. Contact underscore, contact underscore, contact underscore, right? So very important that everything is named consistently. And then, of course, yeah, when we get into our database, this is what it looks like then. So I have my contact, contact, contact. So when we're plugging information back out from this, it's not a guessing game as to what these fields are. Everything's grouped in a nice, consistent way. That doesn't mean we have to, again, spend too much time, same as the design, but make sure that everything is named appropriately. The other thing I like to do when it comes to database design is I like to group related items. So in this particular case, that simply means that user ID and user password, I went in and I edited the table, and then I make sure I move these two guys up so that they're close to the ID. So any ID related information is located towards the front of the table. And again, that's another just a personal style that I pick, which then helps me in the long run. So when I come back to this job in a year, I know that at the front of the table, without having to scroll back and forth, the fields that I actually care about in terms of development are always right here, easy to pluck out. So with that done then, when we go in here, just a real quick note about the SQL Plus, actually, before I move on. I'm using a blob field here so that we could store binary data for our AES encrypted password. And so here we have the SQL Plus, right? And we have our password field being written in, I believe, towards the top here, well in the middle. So I have the user ID and user password, but then is in our field here, then we're running AES encrypt on that, right? And of course, we're going to have to run AES decrypt when we plug that information out. But other than that, this is a really standard write to the database. So the next step then is the team manage. So here again, I've saved us a little bit of time in this video by already creating some of the structure of this job. And really all this was me taking a look at the existing application and just building out some pages. So when we log in now, right, after we create our user account here, when we log in, we're going to be taken to, so we have a login page here, we're going to be taken to this, it's like a management page, a landing page. And then we have these buttons that we can press to then take us to the other parts of the application. And we're going to be getting into this now in the next video, but as an example of that, we have this important info button. Important info takes us to terms and conditions. Notice I'm using a submit route for that right here, right? So click a button, we go to terms and conditions. This is terms and conditions right here. When I click agree, we're going to then update a database table which we'll create to update that part of the task that we can perform, right? The team roster then is going to be the exact same thing. I click this, and this will actually take us to a team roster page where we can then manage all the players on our team. So we'll see how this all starts coming together in the next video. A real quick note on the login then. This is very simple in terms of I'm using a query module here to perform a select count, and then you notice we're using the AES decrypt right here. And we're simply saying, when I provide a user ID and password in RackForms, we're saying go to login.php. In other words, we're going to submit to ourselves. If the query module picks up using conditional code right here, if the login user ID is not equal to blank, that is this form field right here, we're going to run this query, and the query just runs a select count, and we alias it to CT from team register. And team register is this table right here. And team register just simply says, give me all the records where the user ID equals this guy right here, and the password equals the decrypted version of our user password. And so then we pass in our two form fields, right? So from this query, we're running these two form fields, and we then run some code to run after query stuff right here. So if I toggle open the advanced editor right here, if the count field is not equal to or equal to 1, we're then going to say our session for our login is going to be true, and then we're also going to populate the user ID with the ID column. So the ID column now will become this user ID. And this becomes important because then obviously when we start to add team members and whatnot, we're going to need to have that unique ID. Then finally we redirect using standard header call to teammanage.php. And the teammanage is this guy right here, right? So as a quick recount, we have team register, We fill out this form. Really, the big thing here is that we have a login user ID and password. We then write that to the database. And actually, this is kind of interesting right here too. We're going to take a look at this in the next section right here, but we do have a team status, which helps drive this other component. We're going to look at that in just a second as well. But basically, we write this initial record to the database, and then in team manage, we then have this landing page, what we first hit. We're then going to click these buttons, and we're going to then go to the various parts of the application. That's what's going to be talked about in the next video. So please join us for that.